Peptides, a word that just a few years ago was known only to biochemists and pharmacists, is today everywhere. On TikTok, in podcasts, in gyms, at longevity conferences where a ticket costs several $1,000s. Influencers inject them on camera and promise injury recovery in weeks, muscle growth without steroids, skin like you're 20 years old, an immune system like a young person's, a brain like a genius. And the market responds. According to industry analysts, the peptide market is growing by tens of % per year. People are buying substances with names that sound like exoplanets. BPC-157, GHK-Cu, CJC-1295, thymosin, beta-4, and injecting them at home, without a doctor, without dose control, without any understanding of what is actually inside those vials. Today, I researched everything that can be found about peptides in the scientific literature of 2025 and 2026, and I found 5 facts that the industry does not want you to know. Not because they destroy the entire idea of peptides. Some peptides genuinely represent serious scientific interest, but because the truth about them is far more complex, more dangerous, and more fascinating than anything shown in those videos. Before we get to the facts, let's establish what peptides actually are, because the majority of people taking them cannot answer this question. Peptides are short chains of amino acids, essentially small versions of proteins. Your body contains millions of them, and they perform critically important functions. They regulate hormones, manage the immune system, signal cells to grow and repair, and control metabolism. The key word is signal. Peptides are not building material like protein. They are signals. They tell your body what to do. And this is precisely why they are so interesting to science, and precisely why they are so dangerous when used without control. You are not simply adding something beneficial. You are intervening in the body's signaling system, which regulates literally everything, including cell growth, which, when improperly activated, can lead to uncontrolled cell division. Synthetic peptides are artificially created molecules that mimic or amplify the effects of natural ones. Some of them are approved medications. Insulin is a peptide. Semaglutide is a peptide. Many growth hormones are peptides. But the ones we are going to talk about today, BPC-157, GHK-Cu, thymosin, and other biohacker peptides, that is an entirely different story. Fact number 1, and it is the most shocking of all, which is why I am starting with it. The most popular peptide among biohackers, BPC-157, has been tested in human beings exactly 14 times. Not 14,000, not 1,400, 14 people. That is fewer than what is required for a poster presentation at most medical conferences. Let me explain what this means. The journal Stat News published in April 2026 a piece by a physician who sees patients taking peptides. He conducted an analysis of the entire human evidence base for BPC-157. The result, first, a phase 1 safety trial of 42 healthy volunteers registered in 2015, canceled in 2016, and never published. Second, a retrospective case series of 12 patients with knee pain, with no control group and no validated outcome measure. Third, pilot safety study involving 2 healthy adults who received intravenous infusions at a single private clinic in Florida. 14 people. That is the entire evidence base for a substance that millions of people are injecting at home, believing it heals injuries, repairs the gut, and rejuvenates the body. But here is what is important to understand. This does not mean BPC-157 doesn't work. It means we simply don't know. Animal studies do show interesting results in tissue healing, which is precisely why scientists continue studying it. But an animal is not a human being, and something that accelerates the growth of new blood vessels for tissue repair could theoretically also accelerate the growth of precancerous cells. We don't know, because no one has studied this in humans for long enough. The FDA classifies BPC-157 as Category 2, a compound with significant safety concerns when used in compounding. The World Anti-Doping Agency prohibits it for athletes. The U.S. Department of Defense prohibits its use by military personnel. And despite all of this, you can find it online within minutes, labeled for research use only, and order it to your home. Fact number 2. In 2025, 2 women ended up in intensive care following peptide injections at a longevity conference in Las Vegas. Both were placed on mechanical ventilators. Both survived, but it was an extremely close call. MIT Technology Review, which covered this event in detail in February 2026, also published data from an analytics company called Finrig, which tested samples of peptides available on the market. The results are staggering. 30% of samples from unverified sources contained contaminants or deviated from their labeled composition. And, pay attention, 8% of all tested samples contained measurable levels of endotoxins. Endotoxins are bacterial fragments that cause fever and chills, and, in larger doses, septic shock. 8%. This means if you buy a peptide from an unverified source with a probability of roughly 1 in 12, your vial may contain bacterial fragments capable of triggering a systemic inflammatory response. Where does this problem come from? Most biohacker peptides are sold labeled for research use only. This allows them to bypass pharmaceutical manufacturing requirements. They do not go through quality control as medications do. They are produced under conditions that can vary enormously, from professional laboratories to garage compounding operations. A study in the journal Science back in 2020 found that approximately 30% of research reagents from unverified sources contained contamination or did not match their stated composition. And the situation has not fundamentally changed since then. When you inject yourself with a peptide from the internet, you do not know what exactly you are injecting. You trust the label, but the label has not been independently verified. Fact number 3. Some peptides genuinely work, but not in the way those taking them think. Take GHK-Copper, a copper-binding tripeptide, one of the most studied in its class. Research shows that it does indeed influence more than 4,000 human genes. This is one of the broadest regulatory footprints of any peptide compound under investigation. It is found in blood plasma, saliva, and urine at high concentrations in youth and declines with age. Studies show its influence on skin healing, collagen synthesis and anti-inflammatory processes. Sounds like a miracle molecule? Wait, the problem is that most of these studies are cellular or in animals. The evidence base in humans is significantly more modest. And most importantly, what works in a laboratory on isolated cells or mice does not necessarily work the same way when you inject that substance into a living human organism with all its metabolic processes, immune responses, and individual characteristics. Moreover, a 2025 study cited in MIT Technology Review points to a key dosing problem. The same substance at different doses can produce fundamentally different effects, including opposite ones. Something that stimulates cell growth at a low dose may produce a toxic effect at a high dose. And without human trials, we don't know where that line is drawn. And here is what is truly striking. The fact that GHK-Cu influences 4,000 genes is not only an encouraging result, it is also a warning. 4,000 genes, that is systemic intervention in cell biology. We do not know all the long-term consequences of such intervention. Science says, honestly, the potential is there, but clinical application is still far away. And the distance between the potential is there and I inject this into myself every day is enormous. Fact number 4. The regulatory scandal of 2025 to 2026 and why it matters to you personally. In 2024 and 2025, the FDA began systematically restricting access to popular peptides through compounding pharmacies, assigning them Category 2 status, meaning significant safety concerns. This affected BPC-157, thymosin alpha-1, CJC-1295, and other popular compounds. People who had been accessing these peptides through legal medical channels suddenly found that access dramatically narrowed. And what happened next? According to a December 2025 investigation, people massively switched to the gray market. Internet vendors with no quality control whatsoever, imported products with no composition verification, sources with no compounding standards. It was during this period that those 2 hospitalizations in Las Vegas occurred. But the story doesn't end there. In February 2026, an unexpected turn of events occurred. U.S. Secretary of Health Robert F. Kennedy Jr. announced the intention to return approximately 14 of the 19 previously restricted peptides to legal access, both through compounding pharmacies under physician supervision, among them BPC-157, thymosin alpha-1, CJC-1295. What does this mean in practice? First, the peptide market is expanding again, but now under more formal oversight. Second, this creates a fundamentally new situation. Substances that have not completed full clinical trials in humans are being returned to medical circulation under political pressure, not scientific evidence. Third, and this is the most important for you, legal status does not mean proven safety. It means access with physician supervision. The difference is fundamental. Scientists are responding to this with caution. Paul Knipfler, a cell and molecular biologist at UC Davis, stated directly, such a step would put public health at great risk while giving compounders and likely wellness influencers a lot more profit. Fact number 5, and it is the most hopeful of all. because I don't want you to leave this video with only anxiety. While biohackers inject unverified peptides from the internet into themselves, something genuinely revolutionary is happening in scientific laboratories and clinics. Legitimate peptide science in 2025 and 2026 is one of the most productive periods in the history of this field. First, GLP-1 peptides, which we already discussed in the Ozempic video. In 2026, clinical trial data expanded our understanding of these molecules far beyond weight loss. Retatrutide, a triple receptor agonist, showed in phase 3 trials results in weight reduction that no approved medication had previously achieved. Survodutide showed liver-specific benefits in MASH, a disease for which no effective treatment previously existed. Second, peptides in oncology. According to an April 2026 report, phase 2 trials of peptide PDL1 inhibitors in treating triple-negative breast cancer showed an objective response rate in the range of 28 to 35%, comparable to antibody therapy, but with significantly fewer immune-related side effects. Delivery of an anti-tumor payload to tumor cells with precision above 85%. That is a fundamental breakthrough. Third, artificial intelligence is transforming peptide discovery. Systems like Proteo-GPT, described in Nature Microbiology, create new antimicrobial peptides with unprecedented speed. What used to take years of experiments now happens in hours of computation. MOTSC, a peptide encoded in the mitochondrial genome, redefined our understanding of mitochondria as active endocrine signaling organs. Epithalon is re-emerging as a subject of serious research attention in the context of telomere biology and the slowing of aging. This is real science, rigorous, peer-reviewed, conducted at the world's leading oncology centers, and it tells us peptides, as a class of molecules, are one of the most promising areas of medicine's future. But that future is being built in laboratories through trials involving thousands of people, not at home on the advice of an influencer. I want you to leave this video with a clear understanding. Peptides are neither a scam nor a revolution. They are a complex, promising, and still insufficiently studied area of science that became a victim of hype before it had the chance to become mature medicine. Fact 1. The most popular peptide among biohackers has been tested in 14 people. 14. Fact 2. 30% of samples from unverified sources contain contaminants. 8% contain potentially dangerous bacterial endotoxins. 2 women ended up on ventilators. Fact 3. Some peptides show genuine scientific potential, but the distance between potential exists and safe for humans is enormous, especially when we're talking about systemic intervention in thousands of genes. Fact 4. The regulatory landscape is changing, and not always toward greater safety. Political decisions are returning substances to the market without sufficient evidence. Fact 5. Legitimate peptide science is genuinely breakthrough, and it is developing where it should be in clinical trials under strict scientific oversight. If you are interested in peptides, that is completely reasonable. It is a fascinating subject, but interest should begin with information, not with a vial. Talk to a doctor. Demand evidence. Ask what human trials stand behind this claim. All sources in the description. Until next time.